Point After Podcast with your host, Julien Barnett.
What is up? What is up, fantasy world? Welcome into the Point After Podcast. I'm your host, Julien Barnett, coming to you live, as always, from the Great White North and on the True North Podcast Network. This week, I have some fabulous analysts on with me. I'm in a new setup. My girlfriend got the spare bedroom all cleaned out. It looks snazzy. It's nice and clean now. So I got an actual desk that I get to record at. So I'm pretty pumped for this one, guys. Let's get into our two guests we got here before I talk about myself too much. So my co-host to my right here is Chris Robin, known on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. Chris, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm fantastic, thank you. And before we went live, I was talking about the eventful last few hours. Thought there was a body back in the woods. It was just a dog bit a fireman and freaked out, and it was wild. But here we are.
Still sounds pretty eventful.
Wow, absolutely.
And down at the bottom, our guest needs no introduction. He's a Twitter favorite, but I'm going to go about it anyway. Herms, known on Twitter at Herms NFL. You're the lead editor-in-chief and football understander, which is what I love about your bio over at The Lateral. You're also part of Rum Boys. You got a lot of stuff going on, and then as well as 14P. So you're a busy guy. Thanks so much for taking time on your Friday night and kicking back with us.
Dude, of course. We get to talk about football and also like fake football all at the same time. It's two things in one. It's great.
It's fantastic. It's like two of my favorite things too. Like, I'm a talker and I love football. So it's like, I mean, there's a reason I started this podcast in the first place. All right, guys. So let's I want to use that intro to talk about you a little bit, Herms, because you are, like I said, you are an extremely busy guy. And so as somebody who might not know how to get started into the fantasy industry, what kind of advice would you give somebody who is just starting out, who is just getting their dipping their toes in the in writing, or maybe they're just dipping their toes in fantasy football in general? Like, what would you say is your optimal tip that you could give somebody?
Well, if you're cracking into the industry, I would definitely not follow anything that I do. I would probably not using this as a blueprint. Terrible idea. But if you're just getting into playing fantasy football, I don't know. I guess just because the player's name doesn't mean they're good. You know what I mean? If we're talking to just straight, yeah. I'm new into this game, I know nothing about it. That's probably a good launching point, because when I started playing, I was a kid, so I had no idea how the scoring worked or anything like that. So I would just be like, oh, that's a name that I recognize from television. And it would just be like, sure, I'll get them on my team. So yeah, if you're a fan of the sport, but you're brand new to the game of fantasy football, just because you know the person's name doesn't mean they're necessarily good for the game that we play. And I guess, so that's for beginners, I guess. But for people that have been playing for a while, that kind of want to know more stuff or whatever, I don't know, try and make your rankings in tiers. You know what I mean? Going straight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's value to it, but at the same time, you got to get those little subsets and those groups in there. You know what I mean? Get those wheels turning a little bit more. That's something that I do for myself, and I know a lot of other people do too. But in case you're unfamiliar with it, I don't know. You can Google it. I'm not great at explaining things, but I think I made it make sense. Just smaller groups within the big group and all the stuff. And yeah, there you go, boom, that's
no. I thought that was fantastic, man. I mean, that's some of the best advice you can give somebody, because that's something I used to rely on other people's rankings, and I would just base who I'm going to take off of that. When I first started playing fantasy, that's how I kind of went about it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what I've noticed is collective minds, get everybody involved, like start pulling information from, like 5 different rankings. If you're going to make a rankings page, right, like use as many resources as you can. We have so much free fantasy football content online. Like there's so many resources you don't even have to pay for that, like, go and use those things. Don't rely on just one person. Like, I'm not going to go out there and tell you that I know everything. I might tell you that Chris knows everything because I'm pretty sure he does. But Chris, I want to ask you now, what advice would you give to somebody who is just getting started into the fantasy football world? Maybe they're in like one dynasty, but they want to expand a little bit. Like we're going to talk about our main segment today is going to be mistakes that we made in dynasty startups. Kind of throughout our careers, I guess you could say. So, but just for somebody that's getting started into fantasy football, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, to be honest, I would say start slow. I mean, you probably not best taken from me or Herms or you. I mean, we never say no to anything, especially me. But I would say if you're just starting off and you want to put out content or tiered rankings, which is a fantastic idea, do what you enjoy the best. I'm not going to make my content or write my articles for you specifically, Herms. I'm not going to do my rankings and everything specifically for you, Jules. I do what I enjoy, right? And I love DFS, and like that's what I'm really good at. So I do DFS, and years ago, there was a lot of content that I couldn't find, right? We couldn't find. There was no DFS real content. Dynasty content maybe 5-6 years ago was slow. So I just said, you know what? If it's not there, I'm just going to make it myself. So don't be afraid to do what you like the best. If you want to do a ranking of kickers, have at it. If you like that the most, who am I to judge? Who am I to put you down? You start slow and do what you do best. Find what you love and enjoy the most, and you run with that. I mean, because it's obviously clear when you watch other live streams or you read other articles, there's people that are in over their heads, right? You get someone they just started Dynasty 3 months ago, but they have their top 700, Dynasty rankings. That seems a little extreme, and they're probably in over their head, which again, who am I to judge? Just start slow and take a little bit at a time. And then when you feel comfortable, you jump in with both feet. Don't let anybody talk you into anything. Don't let anybody put you down or say what you're doing sucks, what you're doing isn't good. If you're doing it and you enjoy it, then it's good. That's all you have to worry about is you. All I have to worry about is me. And if that's all I can control, then I'm good, baby.
100%, man. Get out there and have some fun. I mean, that's why we're all doing this in the first place. Like ultimately, I mean, I love fantasy football because I love football, and it gives me an access to love it more than just watching the game. I'm actually able to do something with it. And so, Herms, I want to go back to you here. Moving on to our next question is, what's your favorite resource for people? Like, like we said, there's so many of these free resources out there. What is your go-to that you are just like, you find yourself on this website all the time? Maybe there's a couple, like I said, like, pool out, branch out. But if somebody was starting out, where would you tell them to go and look for rankings or for articles or any of that kind of information?
I guess if I was going to tell somebody who's first starting out, if they just want to find a place that has a ton of like easily accessible and easily digestible, pieces of information and whatnot, like
go to lateral.com.
Well, yeah, www.thelateralff.com. You can follow us on Twitter @thelateralff. I do a show called Show with No Name. Anyway,
here's the thing. I follow the lateral, but they don't follow me back. What the heck's going on there?
Oh no, I'll have to tell the bot to correct this error. Oh geez, but the Fantasy Pros, a great place to start, just because like I really like their ADP is super cool, and for people who don't know, it's like a average draft position or whatever. Like they take a bunch of people's different stuff and put it into a collective aggregate, blah blah blah, and then boom, that's how that ends up being a thing. So I like that. That's a good place to start. I definitely recommend Fantasy Pros for a lot of people, but also like a website that I like to use is fantasydata.com. I think they do a really good job. It's also very well laid out. I think, just because for me, like obviously like the information matters, but also like the accessibility of the interface is something that matters a lot to me, because like if you go to a website and it's like super confusing to figure out or whatever, like I'm an idiot. So things need to be very easy for me to understand. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. So anything that is laid out simply that even I can understand, that's when you're doing a good job. So yeah, just like those are the two that I would say are like super cool. I mean, like there are plenty of other really awesome resources, but that's more for like advanced metrics and stuff and whatnot. And like the person first kind of like diving into that, like you don't really need to know that from day one.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, those are probably my first two. And also like there's nothing wrong with anything that like ESPN or Yahoo does, like any of that. I mean, there are fine people who work all over these places and all that stuff. Because there are some people that feel some like weird superiority thing about it or whatever, but like those are also perfectly fine places to find your information as well. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. What do I know? I'm just Fantasy Pros and Fantasy Data. Cool.
I like both those sites. I use them both a lot. And, on that note, I want to throw just a couple more out there that I use. One that I came across, it was actually just this past year, is lineups.com. And they have some absolutely fantastic data. It's free as well. They got all different kinds of snap counts and snap percentages, amount of time played in the slot versus played out wide, like snaps at running back versus wide receiver, like all that kind of stuff. It's not, like you said, if you're just dipping your toes in Dynasty fantasy football, you probably don't need to really get delved into that kind of information, but it's fantastic for writing and for finding information for your own articles. And then the other one I want to put out there is because of our boys in the chat, Ty and Trav out there, and Josh with Fantasy Points, who have an absolutely fantastic database. There's so much great information on there. I could talk for hours about all the different articles and ranking processes and whatnot that they got on there. But definitely check out Fantasy Points, lineups, fantasy pros, and also fantasy data. And Chris, do you have any more you want to throw out there? I know you specialize in DFS, so if you got any DFS website or sites that help you specifically with DFS, let's hear it.
RotoQL is huge. I've had that subscription for like 5 years. It's like $30-$40 a month, and that's for an optimizer. That's all it is. It's points, lineup, data and numbers and everything, but it optimizes your lineups. You can punch in players and go from there. Won't bore you with that. RotoQL, RotoBaller is also very fantastic too. They have an unbelievably great optimizer, and they reached out to me. They've given me free access to their optimizer for about 6 months now, so I appreciate that. All I got to do is mention RotoBaller every once in a while, and the slate is wiped clean. So for DFS stuff, that's it. But for like regular everyday fantasy stuff, I would say it's called fantasyrundown.com. It takes every article, every broadcast, and there's one guy that does it, and he pulls it all in, and it's boom right in front of you. Football, basketball, hockey, everything. Fantasyrundown.com. And I've been going to that website for years, and on a whim, I reached out this time last year, and the guy added bottom of the barrel every week last season for me, which was a huge bump because you're up there with the Fantasy Pros articles. You're up there with the Barry's love hate stuff. So that was a huge bump for what I'm doing. And again, it's one of those things where you love it so much, and then you get your stuff. It's a dream come true. I would imagine that's what it's like. Herms, I know you make music and you play instruments and stuff. That's like having your name on the marquee at the Garden, probably, right? Like that would be a dream come true. And listen, I'm a simple man. Doesn't take much to please me. So to see my content on the Rundown or RotoBaller is fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. So basically what I'm getting is if you have Roto in your name, if you have fantasy in your name, you're probably a good resource for people to go to. So it's a good start. I mean, just look up Roto or look up fantasy on Google and you're going to be fine. Chris, I want to talk to you about this, man, because you posted a poll on Twitter this week, a conversation piece, also on Facebook.
Wow.
And it's really been blowing up, and I think it's a fantastic question. So I'm going to ask you it first. I'll give you my opinion after.
Sure.
But the question was, who would you rather own in Dynasty right now, Najee Harris or J.K. Dobbins? These guys are pretty much back-to-back in ADP, both going in the mid to late second. Najee's creeped up there. I've got him in the third in a couple of super flex leagues, but like in any kind of a one QB format, from a dynasty perspective, he's going in the second round. So those guys are very, very close, maybe even a little bit higher than that. So Chris, I want to go to you first. Like, you posed this question, which one of these guys is actually your favorite, and which one would you want on your dynasty team?
Well, before I answer this, I want to say thanks for, asking the question here. And again, before I answer and kind of rip off some numbers here, let's just be fair here. The rip or the dig on J.K. Dobbins is the fact that his upside is capped. Anybody that's anything or anybody in the know, like that's their go-to argument. Well, I like J.K., but his upside is kind of capped because Lamar is also their red zone running back and everything, which is all fine and dandy. I get that, but that argument or that reply is only going to get you so far. When it comes to Najee, look at draft capital. I know I to be honest with you, I sit here in front of you boys and everybody that's watching. I haven't paid any mind to draft capital until about 6 months ago. I didn't even know what it meant until like a year and a half ago, because it's just not a lot of people talked about draft capital a year or two ago, and now boom, it's in your face. Everybody said if you use the words, there's a lot of fantasy buzzwords. Capped upside is one of those. Instantly, it gives you like this this panache, like I know what I'm doing if I say capped upside, or I know what I'm doing if I say it's wild to me, but not draft capital. That's what it is. So Najee Harris was drafted very high in the draft, so that means he has draft capital, aka Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot invested in him. They're going to give the kid every possible chance to succeed here. And the workload going into the season that Herms has the Steelers head on, we know there's a massive vacancy. It's like a hotel vacancy at the running back position. So Najee is going to get all the targets and touches he can handle here. So personally, I took it upon myself. I've done some rankings, nothing set in stone, nothing's published yet, but I have done some projections for a couple people. JK and Najee are one of them. So I have Najee Harris here at about 225-ish carries this coming season. Sorry, Herms, just shy of 1,000 yards, but you're looking at like 4.5 yards a carry, 7 touchdowns, but this is where it gets very fantastic for Harris. I have him for just over 50 receptions here for another close to 400 yards and 2 more touchdowns. So you're looking at well over 1,200 total yards, 9 total touchdowns here. And then we look at JK. I have him, not kidding, J.K. Dobbins, I have him for about 215, 220 carries, but over 1,000 yards, barely, like 10 or 15 yards over 1,000. Same average per rush, maybe 4.4, something like that. But where he falls short is the receptions. I have him for about 20, 25 less receptions than Najee, but more touchdowns by 1 or 2 here. So when you slice it, I'm looking at Najee Harris right now, it's only May 14th, to finish about 20 or 30 more PPR fantasy points higher than J.K. Dobbins. So to me, I'm taking Najee Harris, and I don't want to, act like a douche or say, well, I'm taking Najee and it's not close, but it is close. But it's so close, it's personal preference at a certain point, because we all know we get in situations where, sometimes you can crunch the numbers until the cows come home and you're just not going to get any answers. So at a certain point, I have to say, Chris, you know what? Screw the numbers, screw what people are saying. I'm going to trust my gut. And to me, Najee Harris just screams to me, draft me. I'm going to be fantastic. I'm going to be better than J.K. Dobbins. So that's who I want on my team, Julian. I want Najee Harris on my fantasy team over J.K. Dobbins.
He's on mute. Oh, no.
Dude, I lean that way as well. I love the points that you laid out. Ty in the chat brought up, kind of the biggest one for me, which is the pass catching issue. And the other side of this is the touchdown numbers. Like he had 8 weeks down the final stretch of the season where he scored a touchdown, and that's just that. And some of those weeks he had multiple touchdowns. So that's what we remember about J.K. Dobbins when we look back on the 2020 season. And so I think that's kind of what's in people's minds. Like I've seen him, in my opinion, highly overdrafted. I was in a Superflex startup the other day, and he went as the RB6. Like. Over a lot of really talented players. And so for me, like if you're going to draft him at the RB6, you're basically buying him at his max upside. Like I just don't see a world that J.K. Dobbins could be.
I want to ask you guys a question, and I'll pose it to Herms here real quick, just off the cuff. Out of Ben Roethlisberger and Lamar Jackson, because again, we can go the too many mouths to feed route for both teams. Pittsburgh is just loaded with young stud talent, and so is Baltimore. But Lamar Jackson or Ben Roethlisberger, what quarterback do you trust more to get the ball spread out? Which quarterback would you prefer to make sure that all these mouths are fed? Would that be Lamar or would that be Ben Roethlisberger? I have an answer, and I by the way you're moving your head, you do too. I'd love to hear it.
I will take the guy with a functional throwing arm. and that is Lamar Jackson. Dear God, Ben Roethlisberger fucking sucks.
He's just like, you know what? And that's not always been the case. It's kind of sad when, the guy was larger than life. I mean, he played in a Super Bowl, downtown here in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. That was his first one he won with Jerome Bettis and all that. And the guy was unbelievably good for so long. And Father Time has just grabbed him and thrown him down, and it's passed him up. And for some odd reason, the guy just wants to keep going. And at a certain point, you got to say, you know what? I have a lovely wife. I have more money than God, probably. Just give it up. It's okay. But I feel like he's, correct me if I'm wrong. You're well plugged in there, I'd like to think. But Ben Roethlisberger, it's all ego driven. Like he needs to have the adulation. He needs to have the light always, shined upon him. Just give it up. Everything's going to be okay, because we're going to look at this coming season. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I have a feeling that the decision for Ben Roethlisberger to retire is not going to be made by him. He's going to get hit. He's going to get hurt, concussion, something nasty with his leg or his arm, and he's going to be forced to retire medically, not going out on his own terms. So right now, he's like a construction barrel, just sitting back there, just trying to get the ball out. So I'm with you.
Yeah, it's not pretty at all. And honestly, I mean, like the desire for him to keep going, if I had to guess the reason why, is like there were multiple opportunities in the past where they had Super Bowl caliber teams that just never quite made it over the hump. And there's probably a part of him that just like is just like, but I gotta make up for it. It's just like, okay, dude, like your chance to like redeem yourself or whatever, like that moment passed physically, first of all, and then also just like with some of the teams, just like, I mean, it's been dwindling over time, you know what I mean? Like it's like there was a stretch of time there, like in like the early 10s, through like the middle part of the last decade, where it was like, okay, this is pretty cool, but just like, like stuff starts tailing off at a certain point, and like this chip on his shoulder or whatever, like it's continued to grow larger with like less and less resources available to him.
And it's weighing him down.
As his beard grows, the chip grows.
Well, really quick. Here's the thing with Ben. I mean, they've had plenty of chances to get over the hump, as you said. And at this point, I think he's holding them back. Look at the last few seasons, the quarterbacks that have been available in these drafts. I've said it about Washington, and I'll say it about Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh or Washington could land, imagine Justin Fields on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Imagine Justin Fields on the Washington football team. They're just loaded with young, fast, athletic talent, wide receivers, tight ends, and even running backs. And yet at a certain point, your quarterback is hindering the development more than hurting. So right now, Ben is going to be playing your starting quarterback this season, maybe next year. I mean, there's no possible way, but you have to think that. Whereas, if you could get one of these young kids in or sign a young quarterback, they start developing together. And now you're just hindering the development of Deontay. You're hindering the development of Claypool and Juju, because again, a new quarterback comes in, and so you're looking at another year or two before everything starts to click and develop. So to me, no offense, Herms, I feel like we're in lockstep on this one. Ben Roethlisberger is really holding the Pittsburgh Steelers back.
He's awful. And one of the things that they really do have going for them as a franchise is that in 2022, the Steelers will have, I think it's either a little over or a little under like 30 million on the books, and that's it. I don't think he's going to want to stick around for like what will be not like a full rebuild, but they're
going to strip it down.
It'll be
Absolutely.
something. Yeah. So like
it starts with getting rid of Ben. Like that's when it starts. Like when they move on from Ben, that's when the official rebuild has happened. But like personally, I think they should have tried to do it this year. Like at least brought in someone, right? Because like you said, Chris, like especially if they bring in.
He's like Jason Voorhees. He just won't die. You can stab him, you can shoot him, you throw him in the lake, he just won't die. Michael Myers, he's like Freddy Krueger. He's like all those 80s horror flick guys. They just won't go down.
No, I definitely agree. And if they do bring in a guy like, say they had drafted Justin Fields, this is a completely different quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger. And like you said, this is going to be like at least a full year of getting used to this new play style. Like if I bring in Justin Fields from a Ben Roethlisberger offense, like the whole offense changes. I run a completely different offense because I'm not going to try
all the way down to the
like,
center to the tackles. You got to block different. You got to be in different spots. I mean, Ben is a plant. He's grown roots in the backfield. He don't move around anymore. And just rewind the tape 10 years ago. I remember sitting around on Sunday nights or Sunday afternoon on CBS, and the announcer, Ben's been in the league 3 or 4 years, and the announcers would say, this is going to catch up to him because he played physically. He didn't run out of bounds. He took too many hits, and here we are now, 10 years later, and the announcers were absolutely right. He's paying for it now.
No, I totally agree, guys. So let's move on here. We'll have a little bit of fun because I like to do that on this show. We're going to talk superpowers for a minute here. So, Herms, I'm going to go to you first, man. If you could have any superpower in the whole world, what would it be?
I mean, like, flying on planes is really expensive. And then, like, you also have to show up, like, really early to, like, airport security and stuff. And, like, and I get why, safety is important. But at the same time, like, wouldn't it just be cool if you could, like, fly places? You know what I mean? Like, that would be super cool. But, actually, scratch that. I want to teleport. Because what I think would be super cool in order to, like, avoid, weird teleportation issues is to set up teleport stations. So that way, if you're looking to go to a certain place, it's like, so like we'll all get the same superpower.
Everybody's got a teleportation system in their house.
Exactly.
Like, this is a common thing.
We all have our teleport stations, and then, we don't have to worry about, public transit, being all like weird and goofy and like missing your train and whatnot. Like, you could still travel in groups. We could, like, I don't know, weird idea. But I thought about it one time years ago when I was like high or something. So like I'm sticking with it. So that's my answer. Teleportation with teleport stations. Boom.
So you could just call that teleport station. I think we could coin that, give that to you. You'll be multimillionaire in a couple of years. Multi-billionaire at this rate.
Hit me up, Elon.
And Chris, what's your optimal superpower, man? There is like a plethora of these things out there. I'm going to give you guys some options after the ones that you've missed on, and you guys could tell me if any of those pique your interest more than what you got. But what do you got, Chris?
Mine would be, without a doubt, I've had dreams about this. I've written about it years ago. I wasn't high, but I just decided to write about it. It was being invisible. Invisibility, I think, would be fantastic. The situations you could get in and the situations you could get out of by just, clicking your fingers and you go invisible. And this is like for selfish reasons. I could go, walk into a bank and walk out with money like I could do a lot of nasty, naughty stuff, but in being invisible would be fantastic. Could sneak into football games, could sneak into baseball games, could go anywhere I wanted to, just being invisible. Like, the saying where, the president of America and Russia gets together, and someone would say, "Oh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall there. Could hang out in the Oval Office all day if I wanted to. No one would know." I mean, I could put myself in any situation I wanted to, and then if you add in teleportation, I could be anywhere in a flash, and then boom, turn off on the invisibility thing, and here we are.
You mean teleport station, right?
Yeah. We got to work in invisibility into the teleport station, Invisibilistation or something weird.
I'm here for it. We'll workshop it. We're going to create this whole sci-fi universe. It's going to be
I just want to, die in the comment. Yeah, that's it's for selfish reasons. Call me Kevin Bacon. It's going to get really self-serving if I'm able to be invisible.
Well, Ty's calling you out for it, Chris. We've all seen Hollow Man. Know what you're doing, Beastie. I love it, man. So a couple where I want to throw out there, because I've done a good amount of thoughts on this throughout the past 5 years of my life. And I've compiled quite a list, but I'll give you guys just a couple that I think would be absolutely unreal. Number one, the power to control the elements. I want to make it hot. I want to make it cold. I want to be able to grow a tree if I want to, split the earth. Like, I want to do all that kind of stuff. That would be fantastic. Number two, telekinesis. I want to be able to pick my beer up and drink it without having to use my hands. That would be absolutely unreal. And the third thing, I want to talk to animals, man. I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know what they're saying. I just... like all the birds chirping on the tree outside my window, I need to know what's going on in that conversation. And right now I'm a sitting duck. So I have no idea. Those are my three. If I had to pick one of those, it's telekinesis. I want to be able to move stuff with my mind. And with that, I'm going to segue nicely into my next question, which I didn't put on the show doc. So I'm giving you guys a little curveball here. But if you could compare any player to a current superhero, or any current player to a superhero that we all know. Yeah, I love this, Mr. Dr. Doolittle Styles. Exactly, Ty. He gets it. But anyways, back to my question, guys. If you could, any current player, compare them to a superhero, who would it be? I'll give you guys like 2 minutes to think about this.
Good,
I talk about mine. Okay, you're good, Chris. So I'll hit you real quick, and then I'll throw it to you. Yeah, Coach is right. I just want to be able to talk about Otis and Loki, my two cats who take after superhero names. So my player is Tom Brady, and the superhero I'm comparing him to is, what's her name? WandaVision. I can't remember the something witch, the Scarlet Witch. And the reason that I'm comparing him to the Scarlet Witch is because you kind of look at her and you think, this woman isn't that powerful. She's not going to do that much. I'm not too worried about her. And that's how people looked at Tom Brady his whole career. And then he would come in and he would command power, and he would command this presence in the locker room. And all he's done is won Super Bowls. So personally, I hate the Patriots, but I respect the hell out of Tom Brady. And I also loved WandaVision and the Scarlet Witch. I think she's one of the most badass superheroes out there. So I'm going to compare those two together. Chris, where are you at with this? And I don't want to hear any easy ones. I don't want DK Metcalf being Superman. I don't want Tyreek Hill being the Flash. We're doing fun ones, all right?
Well, I mean, then mine is pretty spot on. Then I was going to say Derrick Henry. You have. I see that jersey hanging up behind you. It's been the elephant in the room. It looks like for a baby. It's a baby jersey. Why is it so small?
No,
that's what I want to know.
So
it's very small. But okay, yeah.
Oh, it's pinned.
What an optical illusion!
You see,
Herms, am I right? It looked like a baby jersey when we were live. It was like this tiny.
Oh yeah, no, it's probably the wide angle lens. Because I'll tell you what, these are way closer to me than they actually appear. It's trick of the camera. That's
absolutely.
Yeah, so I got Superman. I don't want that. I don't want that, Craig.
I have two real quick. I would say Derrick Henry is comparable to the Juggernaut, in the X-Men series. This guy is massive, hulking human being, and he just runs through people. But you mentioned Tom Brady, and to me, Tom Brady's not like the Scarlet Witch. He's like Homelander from that Netflix series, The Boys, or Amazon Prime. He puts on a smile. He's very nice, but behind the scene, he's probably a fucking asshole. He's a jerk. He can do people. He can make people do what they don't want to do. But as soon as the camera's on, he's Tom Brady, TB12. I'm the golden boy. But then behind the scenes, when the cameras are off, he's just puts you down. He strangles you and holds you up along the wall. So to me, it's Tom Brady as Homelander, or Derrick Henry is the Juggernaut.
All right. Well, I can dig it. And Herms, where are you at? Have you got one locked up in your brain?
I've got a couple, just because everybody made a comparison for Tom Brady, so I'll just make a comparison for Tom Brady. He kind of reminds me of Batman in the way that his own individual powers basically don't exist, but when you surround him with a bunch of really fun gadgets, it really takes it over the top. You know what I mean? So it's just yes, him by himself, sure, Hall of Fame quarterback, but the reverence that people have for him is largely built around the fact that, at least for the first 3 Super Bowls he had, propped up by a super good defense. Even this most recent one, sure, yeah, he did very well, but
he did stuff, but
he did stuff. But at the same time, the credit.
Did he win them that Super Bowl?
Yeah, we need to give more credit to the batter.
They shut down Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you know what I mean. The technology that surrounds Batman is really what makes Batman. You know what I mean. So it's
Iron Man as well.
That at least to a small degree, because nothing against Bruce Wayne, his ability to do all that karate stuff. Yeah, he still had to learn that. He still had to elevate his own game. But what took it from here to the moon is the fact that he had all the all that shit to work with.
All those gadgets, man.
The bat belt.
Exactly.
Anything you need is in the bat belt. Adam West proved that in the 60s. I mean, they had everything under the sun in his belt.
100%. And people talk about it and like the hypothetical all the time is just like, oh, well, what if Aaron Rodgers had been with Bill Belichick the whole time? It's just like, yeah, you know what I mean? Because like, being in
what if, but it didn't.
Exactly. So we'll never know. We'll never know. We'll never know. But like my other one that I had come up with, and because like I don't know like a ton about superheroes, I know a little bit, but like AJ Brown and the Black Panther kind of made sense to me. Just because, like, whenever, like, is like seeing the Black Panther or whatever is like he was really good at doing like combat stuff and using like other people's force against them and like absorbing that and then just like pushing back on it and all that stuff. And like whenever you see AJ Brown, get like hit in the open field, do all this stuff, like he absorbs that shit and like he just goes for miles and like his yards after catch is absolutely insane. Because he can absorb all that and use it right back against you and keep going. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and like, hey, that's a good way to play the game, man. You got to leverage somebody else's power against them and stuff because that's how sports work and also how fighting works. So like, yeah, dude. Yeah. AJ Brown, Black Panther. What's up? Hey.
I love it. We got a couple in the comments too I want to talk about here. Russell Wilson is kind of like the professor from X-Men because he's annoyingly optimistic and whatnot, but you can't say shit because he's got an elite mutation.
He does. Mr. Unlimited.
I love it. Mr. Unlimited. And Aaron Jones is Cyclops for his laser vision, which I think is fantastic. Thank you, Kyle and Ty, for chiming in there. I love both of those answers. I think they're absolutely fantastic, guys. This has been a blast. This is just our icebreaker, guys. We haven't even got into the main segment here. All right, Chris, hit me with one more.
Ben Roethlisberger
is Groot.
He's in the backfield throwing like a tree. He's not going anywhere.
I can't wait for him to retire.
I'm sure. You're a Steelers fan, Herms? Yeah.
That Steelers hat on.
I think so. Yeah.
I got a Derrick Henry jersey behind me, Chris. I'm not.
You got a Derrick Henry baby jersey back there. It's no worries.
I have a Seahawks toque sitting in my closet. I'm not a Seahawks fan, but I just like football.
Yeah, my parents are from Northwest PA. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely understandable. I've talked a bit on this podcast about how I started watching football, so I won't get into that too much. But before we get into our actual main segment today, I just want to give a thanks to a couple of our sponsors for this episode. So number one, we got Monkey Knife Fight. I'm going to play a little ad for you guys. Just find out how to get involved with Monkey Knife Fight and what they're doing there.
If you want the best DFS player prop games in the industry, jump onto Monkey Knife Fight. Monkey Knife Fight is sweeping the nation right now, and we at True North are proud to be doing it along with them. They've got games for all sports and skill levels that are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat, with endless opportunity to watch your winnings pile up. With our promo code TNFF, Monkey Knife Fight will match your first deposit up to $50. So sign up now with our promo code and you can get up to $50 of free money to start making some bank. Again, that's monkeyknifefight.com, and the promo code is TNFF at your first deposit to start playing today.
Boom. I always feel like at the end of that ad, there's supposed to be like another drop, like boom, boom, and it just doesn't come that I'm talking again. But I don't need to say anymore about Monkey Knife Fight because Trav's sexy phone voice has covered it all. Go and check it out at monkeyknifefight.com. Use the promo code TNFF on your first deposit for a match up to $50. You put in 50, you get an extra 50. You got $100 on there. So, and then secondly, I got it on the ticker down on the bottom there, but our friends over at Viridian Global, they do all of our merchandise here. Absolutely fantastic to work with. I played the video last week of them, so I'm not going to do it again, but I want to highlight them and thank them for everything that they're doing. They're also helping us out with our Brighter Skies contest. All of the proceeds that we make from any kind of merchandise sales for Brighter Skies goes directly to our charity. They don't take a cent of it. So seriously can't thank them enough for everything that they do. And yeah, so I love you guys over there, Mark and Will at Viridian Global for doing this. Travis, there we go. We got the comments blowing up. Travis phone sex voice. There we go.
I just ordered a hat from Viridian Global this time last week. The new Undroppables Flex Fit hat, and I can't wait to get it. Very simple to order, simple to use. I reached out to them. I said thank you on Twitter. They got back to me very quick. So Viridian Global is unbelievable. Rock the V gear, I think, is their hashtag.
Yes, it is. And my birthday is coming up, Chris. So I've been trying to drop hints to the girlfriend and the family. This is what I want. Like, if you're gonna buy me something, just buy me some merch from Verdia Global. I've made a list of all of the I'm like honestly, just pick a podcast on there, pick an affiliate. Like, I'm sure I've listened to it. I'm sure I've used their site before. I just want it all. Like, I want everything that they offer. And man, their stuff is comfy as hell. Like I was saying last week to D Brown, I'm like, all of my stuff here I bought in the past like 6 months, and it's been winter here up in Canada, but now it's May. It was 25 degrees today Celsius, and so I can't be on my podcast wearing a toque and a hoodie. And so I mean, that's like, I think it's like 80 or 90 or so. I mean, I don't know. It's quite warm. Like, it's quite warm. And yeah, so I gotta get some summer Veridian Global gear. So that's gonna be the next stop for me on there. But anyways, we've been talking about this for a little bit. So let's move on to our main segment, guys. The 5 biggest mistakes we made in Dynasty startups. We've all done it. Nobody's perfect. I think it's really important to go back and look at these things and actually talk about them, because that's the only way to get better and to learn. And we can pass this on to people who, like we had said at the beginning of the podcast, are starting out themselves and are looking for resources. So I'll take it away with my first one. Then we'll just kind of go around the circle. I'll go to you first, Chris, and then you, Herms. But my first one is know your league rules and actually understand them. Like when I started, I thought I had this under control, and I clearly didn't. It takes a little research, but it makes a huge difference. Find out if it's 1 QB. Find out if it's super flex, 3 wide receiver, 2 wide receiver. If there's a point per first down, if there's a point per carry, like any of those things make a huge difference in your drafting, and also like in the way that you approach the league. So for me, that was kind of like the big one that I really had to learn, was that the way that I am doing things might not actually be the best way to go about it, and that I needed to actually like understand the league rules. I think that's it's pretty basic, but it's laid out there for you. So Chris, what's your number one tip or number one mistake that you made when you started doing Dynasty leagues?
I traded way too much, and before you know it, I traded myself out of any players of importance. I traded myself out of any draft selection of importance, and at a certain point, you just trade to trade. I know a lot of people who love to trade. I love to trade, but at a certain point, you're kind of just spinning your wheels, right? You're a neutral. You keep trading, picks for picks or players for players, and before you know it, you're back where you started. So be careful how many times you trade, and this isn't a PSA for not to trade. It's just you don't have to do too much. Sometimes, as they say, I don't know who created it, but less is more. Few trades, you're good. You want to trade out of the first round. I know that's a big thing going around, been around for years. If you're in a dynasty startup and you have a top 5 pick, trade out and get a late first round and maybe a second or third here. Just don't trade too much, because before you know it, you got nothing, right? You got no selections, and you're stuck with a handful of players who you're not even that sold on, but you did it because, the addiction to trade is real.
It seemed like the thing to do.
Yeah. I know, being addicted to trading in fantasy football isn't going to lead to rehab. It's not going to lead to, to jail, but it's going to lead to not having fun in your fantasy football league. So be careful how many times you trade in the beginning of a startup.
For sure. And I just wanted to highlight this too, because I think Ty did a fantastic job putting this in the comments, but all the more important in 2021 with the 17-game season, late bye weeks, know when your playoff formats are. Like, this is all stuff that kind of ties into what I was saying. Ties in. Herms, what's your number one draft mistake that you made when you started?
Oh gosh. The format. I could keep saying it, but like, the format. If you don't know like what you're getting involved in, then like, I don't know. It kind of ties into your point, about like make sure but like, because like the scoring system and like the roster size, like that's like, it's the
roster size is the biggest one. Like, to me, that really is, because if you're playing in a league with, say you have 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, it's super flex, you got a tight end, and then 2 flex spots. Like, going about your draft, I'm going to get into this a little later, but that changes my strategy. Like, I'll talk about it later, but that definitely changes how I go about that. Sorry to cut you off, but I love that point.
100%. It's just, in like full transparency, because I'm a very honest person or whatever. Like, I played Dynasty baseball for years before I ever got into Dynasty football, which was this past year. So I do have experience in Dynasty fantasy, just maybe not as much in Dynasty football, but a lot of the same principles do apply.
We're talking theory.
Exactly. Yeah. So, because again, like, I don't want to front and, be like, yes, I know all of it, just, I'm a man of honesty, but like a lot of the same principles apply. So I'm letting you know where I'm speaking from. But like, yeah, I mean, the format is everything. And the same thing applied to the Dynasty. Like, I was in the same Dynasty baseball league for like 4 years or so doing all that stuff. We had like a full minor league system and everything. It was awesome, and like, if you get too caught up, doing the whole, like knowing the format and all this. Okay. So like for that, like the scoring system, like rewarded, like relief pitchers who could rack up, not just saves, but also holds and other things like that and stuff. But like, I saw a few people in the startup that we did draft only closers who could only, earn you saves and not get you points for holds and stuff. And it's just like, but that's a whole avenue of points that you're closing yourself off to. So like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And like, even though this doesn't, like, it's not a direct 1-to-1 comparison or whatever, but like if you roll into a draft for a tight end premium league and you have no idea that it's tight end premium, you're gonna be like, tight end, who cares? I don't need it. And then,
or you don't understand like what that premium actually does, right? Like, like the difference that a tight end premium Travis Kelce makes versus a normal Travis Kelce. Like a normal Travis Kelce was the wide receiver 7. That's what he would have been. A tight end premium Travis Kelce is like way better than any wide receiver 1 you can get. Like, you know what I mean? So it makes a huge difference. And a lot of people, like, you'll see them, if they don't understand that, they'll take a Tyreek Hill or they'll take Devontae Adams or Justin Jefferson over Travis Kelce because of the age or because, they see this upside, right? But know your formats. It's huge, man. It's huge.
Like I can't tell you the number of times that I've been in startups and then it'll be like round 6 and somebody will enter the league chat and be like, oh, wait a minute, is this type of league? And it's just like, dude, like before
you drafted for 6 rounds.
It's like before the thing even starts. Like if you play on Sleeper or whatever, and if you play on any app, it's easily accessible. But just for the sake of this thing, like if you play on Sleeper or whatever, like you scroll down for like 2 seconds and then boom, the scoring format's right in front of your face. Like it takes minimal effort to be like, oh, so what are we playing? Like it's right there. It's right there. Like just read things. I can do it. Okay. If I can do it, you can do it. Just, I swear, pay attention. Know the thing.
You got to give yourself a little more credit, Herms. I think you're a pretty viable guy to go to about this stuff. So let's move on to our number 2. We'll go around the circle again. I'll start just because this is the way the rotation is working. To me, spending up to get my guy was a huge mistake. And, you hear people say this all the time, go get your guy. But really, like what I've been doing and advising to do is trade out of the first round, trade back, incur value, because to me, that's what this is all about. What gives you the most value? So when I actually broke it down, like players that returned at top 12 value last year in Superflex leagues versus their ADP, it was 4 players in the top 2 rounds that returned at ADP, giving you a higher production than what they actually put out there. And so for me, like I don't want to bank on my knowledge betting on these guys. I would rather trade out and incur value and take multiple shots on guys that I believe in and I have broken down or whatever. But for me, like that's the biggest thing is I never want to trade up in a dynasty draft. The only time I advise trading up is when you're in like the 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th round, and there's a guy you really like who has fallen and has continued to slip, and you can make a package that you're not going to be giving up like a really valuable piece in order to get them. But if you're, like say you really want Justin Herbert, you have to trade up to the 107 to get him, and you're going to stack him with say you have the 109 or say you have the 103 and you want to stack Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert together, and you send your 3rd, 4th, 5th, and you get back a 9th and and the first, right? Like something like that. I can see a trade like that going down. You've now lost out on so much value. And like when push comes to shove, like, you know, if you go and get Kirk Cousins, if you go and get Matt Ryan, yeah, you're not going to have them for the longevity that you're going to have Justin Herbert for, but you're going to get similar production and still be able to, you know, build a roster of elite running backs or of elite wide receivers and like really build that team and then plug and play the quarterbacks. And if you incur value, like if you make a deal like that where you send a first for a second, third, fourth, or something, you know, whatever that deal looks like, you're going to be able to take a quarterback with those picks anyway, right? It's not going to be Justin Herbert, but you're still probably going to get, you know, maybe a Jalen Hurts or Matt Stafford, like Coach is saying in the comments, or, you know, maybe you go and get Kirk Cousins or Ryan Tannehill or like any of these guys in like the 4th, 5th, 6th round of like Superflex leagues. I'm so on board with. I just think like that's, to me, that's the most viable option when I'm doing dynasty startups. Goofy in the chat asked if I'm talking about him. I'm in a dynasty startup with the Undroppables with him right now as we speak. So that is hilarious. He did, I believe he traded up. I'd have to go look at the draft board, but assuming by that comment. Anyways, Chris, let's move over to you, buddy. What's your number 2 draft mistake that you made?
I take things too personal, and that's on me, right? And that's all. I can't control what other people are going to do. I can't control people, place, their things. All I can do is be mindful of me and what I'm doing. I take things, you know, personal, and I can't help it, as I've said. So when I say that, I mean, you know, in today's day and age, right, Herms, everybody, we're all friends on Twitter, but none of us have really ever met in person. I haven't shaken your hand. I haven't given you a hug. I haven't said, "Hey, Herms, it's good to see you. We did this broadcast together," but yet we're all playing in leagues together. We're all interacting together. And I take it personally, not so much like comments or things on articles, but in a fantasy league, if we join a league together and you reach out, and I'm only saying this because you're the only one I'm here to talk to right now. Like, let's say, you reach out and say, yeah, I want to trade. I want to trade. Let's do it. And I send just dozens of offers, and you just leave me on red. You don't answer me back. I get pissed off and I take it personally. Yeah. And then bam, I cut you out. I cut you from the list of people that I'm going to deal with in the future in this league. I take it personal. And to be fair with you boys, I just finished a 3-part series. I wrote it before. I kind of tweaked it. I hate fantasy football players. There's 10 people in each one. It's the too many leagues guy. I hate the too many leagues guy. We all know that. Or girl, someone that gets in 17 leagues and they don't know what's up from down. And yeah, I sent you an offer. Well, what league? And you never hear back because it's just too much for that person to take on. And again, I judge and I'll take it personally, and I can't help that. And I'm working on it. I'm getting better at it. At least I'm being open and honest about it with you guys here. So, you know, like, that's my mistake. I take things too personally when it comes to fantasy leagues. You know, if you're going to make a selection in a draft or you make a trade, I hate that too. If I make a trade and you don't like it, it has nothing to do with either one of you. Mind your business. Why you got to message me and say, "Oh my God, you gave up Patrick Mahomes for that"? Mind your own business. It's my team. I run it how I want. But again, I take that stuff personal. So don't be like me. It's all for fun. Don't take it too personal. It's not an attack on me. It's not an attack on you. It's just how I'm built, right? I'm a very emotional guy, very passionate guy, and I take things too personal every once in a while. So that's my second mistake. Don't take things too personal. It's all for fun.
I love it. Oh no. Julian's also on mute. Oh no.
I'm muted. Just so you guys know, when I walk away, I have you in my ears, so I can still hear you. I can hear everything you're saying. I just mute myself so you don't hear me opening my beer. But in our comments here,
I was gonna burn you that time, but you can hear it, so I won't do it.
You dodged a bullet there, Chris. You dodged a bullet.
Get kicked out.
We got Smokey in the comments saying that in a recent startup, he went Mahomes, Kelsey, Pitts. I'm not sure if this is tight end premium. Please let us know, Smokey. But Kyle, good buddy of mine, said nah, Pitts with the puking emoji face. Now, Kyle Pitts is one of my favorite prospects. I absolutely love him. Sadly, only have one share. Is a tight end premium league. I was able to grab him at the 104. I grabbed him as the first skill position player over Najee Harris on a team that I needed running back help. So, you know, I needed a share of Kyle Pitts. I love 0.75 premium with 40-yard bonuses. I think you're in the money, Josh. That's a great move, in my opinion.
That's good.
I'm fine with that, man. I have absolutely no issues with that. Wide receiver is the deepest position in fantasy football. You can fill out the rest of that later. And then, I mean, obviously you're going to be struggling with the running backs you're going to get in the 4th, 5th round. You probably have them already. Yeah, he's going to be like commenting, coaching us along as we're talking about this. But Herms, before we get into that, what's your number 2 dynasty mistake?
Oh, geez. I mean, like, I guess like not understanding that like developing your own process is more important than like anything else. You know what I mean? Because like it's important to like, yes, like take notes from other people who are experienced, take notes from other people who have good information, bake that into what you do. But like what your methodology is and what your strategy is yours and yours alone. So because I mean, like, it's cool. Like, if you want to follow somebody's exact, like your bullet point, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 list of things to do and like never stray from that. Cool. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but like, don't be afraid to just like, like try shit based off of what you know and what you have found to work, what you have researched and all this stuff. Because like, I remember like a couple of years ago, like, in a startup draft that I did, like, I reached like super high on like AJ Brown and I got clowned for it. But I was like, nah, dude, it's going to work.
Now
out.
You're here.
And then it's aged very well. So it's just like, like there are so many times where I don't know. I don't have a specific player in mind right now, but this is, say, for all intents and purposes, like player X or whatever. Like if you draft player X in like round 3,
Professor X?
Yes, if you draft Professor X in round 3 of your startups, and like
that's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and like like you could post a poll on Twitter right now and be like, was it a reach? Yes or no? And it could be like 80% yes. A year from now, you could post that same poll and the results would be completely different. We don't know everything, okay? You know what I mean? Like a part of playing Dynasty is, being able to have like a foot in the past, a foot in the future, and like a secret 3rd foot in the present. You know what I mean? Like you have to be like, we're using the past to determine the future.
Project the future.
And doing yeah. So it's just like people who like only play based on the past. It's like, okay, whatever. People who only play for the long haul of the future or whatever. Like, okay, cool. Like I don't know, like figure out what your shit is and just like roll with it, homie. You know what I mean? Like, because like people
man.
Yeah, people are gonna clown you no matter what you do, man. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
people get harsh about some stuff, bro. But like at the same time, like I said, like there are people like I guarantee, like we saw like screenshots from like people would post all the time. I remember like like a year ago, people would be like, "Oh wow, why are you doing investing all that in Antonio Gibson? What are you, an idiot? Oh, he barely had any carries in college, and look at how that turned out." So like, just, I mean, I don't know. If you feel like you know what you're doing, then just like do it. And if it doesn't work out and you look like an idiot, okay, fine, pivot. And that will lead into the thing that I say next. But either way, like, yeah, I mean, like, whatever, dude, like work on your process and do what you feel like works. Cause like, you can't let other people's stuff be the basis for what you do. So just like, I mean, like I said, like take advice from other people. Don't be selfish about it and be like,
oh, 100% though, man.
You know what I mean? Just like, trust your gut, man. Like do stuff, have fun.
And honestly, it's great advice. Like, you talked earlier about creating a tier, about creating your own tier rankings, which isn't, really hard to do. Like, Chris does it with a pen and paper every single year. He sits down and he works those things all together. And I admire that about him. I think that is, I do it on a website. I do it on a sheet of, not on a sheet of paper, but
IDP.
that is IDP.
Rookies.
He's got his rookies. I bet you got Superflex in there.
Post draft. No, that's next. I haven't. It's all in my head,
okay.
So I just got to get it on pen and paper. So I got my IDP with my top 100 ranks, which were published yesterday on Fantasy Pros, and the undroppable site. That was pretty easy to do. And I love what when you say, Herms, about tiered, because again, if you notice the way people draft now, they set their cues and they get locked on one guy. And then what if I'm at pick 5 and Julien is at 3 and you're at 4, and boom, right before my selection, Herms, you grab him, and I'm standing around and I'm left holding my hat because I wanted one guy. But if I say, well, in 10 picks, I have a tier, and in that tier is 8 guys, and I'd be happy with any one of them. So no matter what you do before me, as long as I get a guy from that tier, I'm good to go.
Thank you. I mean, because if you're befuddled by one person going, then like
you're already screwed.
Like, yeah,
yeah, exactly. You've got to be ready to pivot, which I think is your third one, Herb. So I don't want to touch on that too much. I will get into my third one though, which is I started playing redraft, and so I always waited on a QB. But if you're in any kind of like premium format, I will advise spend up for that premium. Like if I'm in a tight end premium league, I want one of the top 3. Now it's top 4. Like I want one of Kelsey, Kittle, Pitts, or Waller, and so I'm going to spend up for that. If I'm in a super flex startup and I'm at the 108, I'm going to spend up and, I'm going to grab a quarterback there, right? Even if it is a little bit of a reach, because the value that position brings to your team is so much greater. And also, like, you have to be able to go with the flow. Like that's kind of my next one, but like, follow the board. Go with you've got to be able to determine how the board is going to fall. And this ties into everything you guys are saying. You can't be set on one guy. You simply just can't. Like you've got to have options, and it's not just options at one position. It's options to change your entire draft strategy, which I'll get into later. But so Chris, what's your number 3, man? We're running a little over here. We're probably going to run to the 115 mark. I know Herms has another podcast after this on Run Boys, so I do want to get out of your
and my alarm just went off. I have like 75 lineups to edit in 10 minutes on FanDuel for the MLB After Hours. So really fast, I will say be decisive, right? That there's not a lot of room to be indecisive with what we're doing, right? If I like right now, we're here right now. Let's talk about what we're doing. If you ask me a question and I'm hemming and hawing and I give 2 answers, but they're contradicting each other, guess what? I look like a fool. There goes my respectability. There goes my honor, however you want to put it. So be decisive. If you make a decision, stick with it. Don't quit second guessing yourself or saying, oh, was it the right move? That's the easiest way to just completely, tear down your fantasy roster. That's the easiest way to really kill your attitude, or really kill your self-esteem too. If you're not making quick decisions, or you're always like, was that? Just make a decision and stick with it, especially in fantasy football. If someone sends me an offer and I like it, then I'll accept it. If I don't, then I decline it, and I don't think twice about it. Same thing with a draft. If I've done my research, if I've done my notes, I have literally 1,000 players written down in front of me. I've been there before. I've done it. So why would I second guess myself when push comes to shove? When we're on the microphone, when we're on a camera, or we're on a draft clock, when no one's looking, trust your own gut. That's kind of been the Herms's, MO this broadcast. Make a decision and trust your own work. Trust your own progress. You do it for a reason. You love it. You enjoy it. We all have a different system. We all have a different process. But at the end of the day, it gets us where we're going. It gets us wins. It gets us adulation. We're on broadcast. We're having fun. So be decisive. That indecisive kind of thing really wears thin on people around you, not only in your work life, your family life, but also in our fantasy lives. Indecisiveness can really kill the mood, can really kill your fantasy team quicker than I can ever remember anything.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's great advice, man. And Herms, what's your number 3 here, buddy?
I mean, it kind of ties into what he was saying, it's just like, make your decisions, do all that stuff. But like, if you feel like you goofed immediately or whatever, and that's just like something you're just like, okay, I goofed, whatever. Pivot, baby, pivot. Because, like, honestly, if you know the people that you're playing in a league with, and I don't mean like oh, I know that guy. I mean like really like know the person. And this also applies to what happens after the startup and just ongoing, just playing in long-term leagues anyway. Like, know the people that you're playing against, man. You know what I mean? Because like if you end up taking a player and you're just like, I don't really know how I feel about it, but it's just like, oh, but Johnny over there really likes this guy. Okay, so I know what I can do is just be like, hey, I'm putting this guy on the block right now, because you know that DM will come to you immediately being like, hey, so I heard you're looking to shop this guy. And it's like, oh, yes. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
People, you know what? People can see that a mile away, and especially, I'm not saying this to like pat myself on the back, but even you, Herms, you've been playing fantasy football for a long time. I've been playing DFS and fantasy football for a long time too. If I'm in a draft with you and you grab a guy that was out insanely out of this world, and then in the comments or on a phone call, you're like, I'm not too sure. I'm like a shark. That's blood in the water for a fantasy football player. If you're like, I'm not sure I did that, well, guess who's there in your DMs in 2 seconds looking to grab that player, looking to reap the benefits from your ineptitude, from your indecisiveness. So that's a good move.
Because it's like you're playing a game of fantasy points on your team versus fantasy points on another person's team, but you're also playing against your brain against another person's brain. You know what I mean? Like this is more psychological than we give it credit for. You know what I mean? Like a lot of it's not just a numbers game, because you're playing against other human beings that feel human things. So you can leverage that to benefit you in if you're thorough about it and you're savvy about it all the time, if you really want to. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's a bad thing to say hey, play with people's emotions, because it's that's not what I'm saying. And I don't say it in any sort of cynical way.
It's a strategic move. I mean, fantasy football, what you said is fantastic. I couldn't said it better myself, but what we're doing is more strategic than anything. You could probably give an orangutan at the zoo a phone and he would draft a fantasy football team. But does he have the wits? Does he have the smarts to make trades, to listen to what you're having to say? So strategy plays a massive role in what we're doing, and with strategy comes emotions, people getting upset, people being overjoyed. So prey on those emotions. Well,
and that's that's what the difference between Dynasty and redraft for me. I love redraft leagues in a sense, because they give you like to me, I look at a redraft league, it's 20-80% luck versus skill, 20% being skill, 80% being luck. Because the rosters are always smaller, the lineups, you can find guys on waivers who are starting in Dynasty leagues every single week in most redraft leagues. And so when we start talking about a Dynasty league, that's where that strategy really comes into play. And I loved what you guys said. I wanted to touch on that too. I think about it like the stock market. You've got to be able to play this and move things, adjust and be able to really be able to maneuver your own way through through your own league, right? And like you had said earlier, Chris, if you're completely inactive or you're just so busy that when people message you, you just don't answer or whatever,
the worst.
That just it speaks to how you value your team. I do think, and so I love that you guys said that. Like I said, I like to think of it as the stock market. I wanted to talk quickly too, just some points that I had kind of forgotten earlier in my explanation of my number 3, but is to be able to pivot in your draft. And so have multiple strategies available to you. It's not just you're in this draft and okay, I want to go running back heavy, so I'm just going to take the best running back available. No, if 5 running backs go in the first round, you got to pivot, man. You're now got to go if you're in a super flex league, you got to go quarterback heavy, or, maybe you go tight end running back early or tight end QB, but know the strategies that you can pivot to, because, those first 3 rounds, they really determine how the rest of your draft shakes out. I had a Dynasty startup this past week that was drafting, and I traded out of the second round with my first pick. I had the 111. I took Jonathan Taylor. I traded out of the 202, and the guy took Dalvin Cook, but I traded multiple picks I traded 4 multiple picks to go and get that, and I ended up with Derrick Henry, Antonio Gibson, and DeAndre Swift as my 3 running backs. So do you think that I grabbed a running back until the 12th, 13th round? Hell no. I was stocking up on all these other position groups because that's the way the draft board fell. And I had to pivot my draft strategy because of where my next picks were coming from. So really, I always say it, but be like water. You got to go with the flow. You got to do what's going to work. I love your fish down there, Herm. So let's move on to number 4. I just said it, be like water, go with the flow. It kind of ties into my last one, but yeah, you really can't get locked into executing this one specific strategy. Otherwise you're going to end up with a team that, it might be the strategy you wanted to produce, but if you're reaching on a running back in the second round, or not really like playing the value game, I think that's where a lot of dynasty owners, they lose out because they don't understand the value that one player is versus another player. Like every single person's, like you had said earlier, it's a mind game. Like one guy might see a one specific player, like say J.K. Dobbins and Antonio Gibson. So I have Antonio Gibson higher than J.K. Dobbins, but I know that some people have J.K. Dobbins higher than Antonio Gibson. So for me, like if I have J.K. Dobbins and can go flip him for Antonio Gibson plus like a second, I would do it in a heartbeat, right? Because I know that that's down the road, that's going to benefit me, and I'm already getting the player that I perceive as the higher value, not necessarily what like the consensus is. I love it. So, look, Chris, what's your number 4, man? We'll wrap this up here pretty quick. But yeah, take us out of here.
I would say, I mean, and this one's very easy. I mean, we've touched on so much good stuff. It's all been intermingled and intertwined here. But I would say, just simply put, just do your homework, do your preparation, and go from there. Now, most people that rank, even Pat Fitzsimmons, the number 1 overall ranker in the world.
We had him on a few weeks ago.
We were with him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
And I continue to reach out to him and pick his brain about other things, because I'm ranking on Fantasy Pros. This is coming into my second season here,
by the way.
Maurice, excuse me. And so I'm picking his brain all the time. So I would say do your homework, and if you do that, then everything's fine. If you do your homework and you're prepared, then pivoting isn't an issue. You're happy to pivot. You've done the work. You've done the research here, and most rankers that I've talked to, and everybody can do it, but from what I've read, how did you start off ranking? That's always the question. And the first answer always given is, well, I wanted to do it for myself to see what it was like. I wanted to do it for myself for my own personal notes. I wanted to do it for myself for a few friends of mine, my neighbor, my coworkers, whatever. And and here we are. People look for it. People trust my opinion, kind of thing. So preparation and do your homework. You can't miss that way.
That's perfect. Herms, what about you, buddy?
My 4th point kind of already got brought up a little bit, so I'll just condense that and then just give my 5th anyway. So the 4th is just like, okay, like read the room or whatever. It's just like if it's going to end up being like the New York Stock Exchange and everybody's going to be trading all the time, it's just like, okay, be prepared for that. If it's not going to be like that, okay, be prepared for that. Just maximize the moves that you're going to make, however they're going to be made and however often they're made. That's boring. But the biggest thing that I really want to get out there is like the fact that like we are huge nerds. This is a game that was made up for fun. For fun. It's a fun game for fun. It's a game for fun. It's a fun game. Like, dear God. Like, oh God.
Like don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, like
we're here for fun.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, yes, like, do I take obscene amounts of pride in the work that I do? Like, of course I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. Like, I want to help people. Like, yes, of course I do. That's what I do this for. I do this to help people. But at the same time, it's just like, bro, like, if you get like so serious about stuff sometimes to the point where like you end up just being like a dickhole about something, it's just like,
or you're like stressed all the time. Like,
exactly.
I've been there, man.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's just like take a step back, take a breather, and just be like, yo, this is fun. This is a game that we play for fun. So, like, if something doesn't work out, if something's bad or whatever, and people are clowning you and people are yelling at you and doing this, that, or the other, like, it's a game. It's a game that we all play for fun. It's fun. It's made up. Everything is made up, and the points don't matter. It's like, whose line is it anyway? Absolutely. It's all made up.
No, that is so well put, man. Like, I've experienced that firsthand. Like, being really stressed out about my lineups or whatever, and like, or about like who am I going to add as a waiver wire this week, or who am I going to draft, or like all of those things, they come up. But man,
that's passion. That's the passion. That's why it's so fun. It's passionate. It's entertainment too.
Exactly.
Entertainment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and you feel invested because you've put work in. Like at least I do, right? Like I feel that's why I get upset over certain things happening.
Oh, for sure. But it's
not,
just like
I mean,
keeping the perspective in
Mhm.
balance or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if you're
Totally,
upset for the wrong reasons, then you've forgotten that it's fun. If you are upset and panicked about something because it's related to the game and it's something like related to the fun, then yes, you're stressing and it's like I swear to God, when it comes like by mid-August every single year, I have an existential crisis with my own brain where I'm convinced that I have forgotten everything that I once knew about football and that I will never win a league again. And I feel so inadequate about my own knowledge that I just freak out. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to put out these rankings and they're all going to suck and everybody's going to hate me and they're going to call me an idiot. And I'm so paranoid. Like, what's going to happen? Oh my God, why do I keep doing this? Why? And then I have to remember, it's just like, look, I've done well in the past. There's a reason why I do this. It's because it's fun. And then the minute I recenter that focus, boom, good to go. It's like, okay, there it is. All right, fine. Whew, that weight off your shoulders, you know, the pit in your stomach is finally gone. You're like, it's a game. It's a game for fun. Everything is made up and the points don't matter.
I absolutely love it. It's so important to be grounded and stay in tune with that. Chris, Silly Goose in the comments wants to know, are you still in touch with Tig?
Yeah. He's here now. I just it's Beastie. I renamed it Beastie, and it's a she. I just gave her a little soup. It's called. It's a Whiskers cat treat, and it's looks like the grossest thing possible. It's like broth with hunks of shrimp or chicken in it. So she's around here somewhere. She split. I kicked her out of here while we were going live because I didn't want her walking around or scratching my legs. So Tigger's here, but her name is she's now changed from a male to a female, and her name is now Beastie. So thank you for that, Silly Goose Network.
And guys, I actually, so I started this new job a couple weeks ago. I'm cleaning windows. We do like eaves troughs and all kinds of like outdoor cleaning on people's houses. We also do inside their inner windows, their interior stuff. And I was at this this job yesterday, and I met a cat named Tigger who followed me around the house the entire time I was there. He just hung out like every room I went in. He came and followed me, and someone actually asked me this week when I told them that I was having Chris Robin on. They're like from Winnie the Pooh, and I feel a little bad, but that never clued into me before. Like your name is Chris Robin.
No, it's not my real name.
I was today years old when I.
It's not your real name. I mean,
no,
I don't know
not.
what your last name is, to be honest. I've always just called you Chris or Beastie. So
well, my first name is Chris. And my last name is DeBacker, which you can find. I publish those IDP ranks, and on Fantasy Pro, that's the expert's name, Christopher DeBacker. And when I published it, people said, "Who the hell is this? And where are these rankings from?" Well, that's me. It started off years. I won't bore you with the details. We're almost at an hour 20 here, but I was working at a drug and alcohol inpatient facility, and so on social media, ex-clients would reach out to me all the time. In my contract, I can't talk with those people. I can't meet with those people. So I said, well, my first name's Christopher. My middle name is Ronald, so it is an R. So I said, Chris Robin makes sense, and here we are.
Man, I've always been wondering about that, and I'm glad that now I know, because we met on Facebook, like you and I. That's how we started connecting with each other in the first place. And your name on Facebook is Chris Robin, so I just assumed that was how that was what your name was. So I'm glad you got that out.
So people can't find me as easily. It's my nickname, my stage name, my stage name.
Well, I will continue to call you Christopher Robin as long as you call me Batman. As long as you'll be my Robin to my Batman. Let's wrap this up here, guys. The last piece I just want to put out there is don't get caught in take lock. We all make mistakes. Knowing to move on for the betterment of your team is critical. One example of this that I got is like I was going through my Dynasty leagues this past week, and in my home league, I'm still holding on to Miles Boykin. Like I could have dropped him for somebody mid-season last year. This is now into, we just did our third rookie draft. Like, and I've been holding on to Miles Boykin, and because when he was drafted, I was like, this guy, he's going to be it. He's like, he profiles like, he profiles like Julio Jones. This is the dude. Like, and like, man, you got to move on. Like there's a point in every single player's career where you have to evaluate what they actually are. And we always think that we know what a player is going to be coming into the NFL. They move it, they move to a position where they got opportunity. They're a talented player. Shit happens. Like, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes players get injured. Like, look at Darius Geis, right? Multiple knee injuries, and then he comes out with domestic abuse. Like, and there's still people holding on to Darius Geis because of the upside that he could have if he ever gets back on a football field. To me, I'm going to drop him. Let another manager handle that issue on the waiver wire. Like, someone else will pick him up, and sure, I mean, it's unlikely you're able to trade them for anything. Like, talking about like Geis or Boykin, like, nobody's going to pay you anything to have these players. But if you go and drop them and now they're just a roster clog on somebody else's roster, that actually helps your team in the long run anyway. And, because you're not getting stuck in take lock. You're now like continuing to be able to shift your team, while other people who might see these players as, viable options are going to go and pick them up off of waivers or whatever, and then just waste a roster spot on them. And you never know who's going to get dropped for one of these guys. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Chris, hit me with your last one here, Herms. I know you already did yours. We got to get out of here pretty quick here, but
I don't have another
what's your last one?
I don't have another.
I love it. That's perfect. That's all we need.
Be kind to people in your league. Be kind to people on social media. Be kind to regular everyday life people at the gas station, at the grocery store. Be supportive of people. We all have our own quips. We all have our own quirks. And by myself alone, I can get far, but together with the help of other people, I can get to the moon, as Herb stated earlier in the broadcast, to the moon. So be helpful. Be helpful, be supportive, keep an open mind, and together we can do anything. Alone, our upside is capped, just like J.K. Dobbins.
I absolutely love. Look at that! Look at that! It's like a full wheel. So let's plug anything we got before we get out of here. Obviously, you can find me on Twitter at @thepointafterff. My name is Julien Barnett. If you just see the handle, that is who's behind it. I'm also doing a film room study with Tyler _FF_ on Twitter. We haven't actually done one in a little while, but we've been really, really trying to get one of these pumped out. We want to do Jalen Waddle here. We were supposed to have it up this past week, and I was super busy at work, and he was super busy at work. So anyways, you can go check it. We got 5 draft prospect breakdowns, but basically, like, what we're doing on that series is breaking down players, and we're trying to show people how to break down film, what to look for, what the things that stand out to us, and so that they can go and watch their own film and be able to break that down for themselves. So definitely go check that out. You can find it on the True North YouTube page. It's under a playlist called the TPA Film Room. I'm live on every Friday with alternating with Chris and our boy D Brown, who's in the comments earlier. And then Herms, where can the people find you on Twitter? Well, actually, I got the handle down there, Herms Herms NFL. But what are you working on? What are you pumping out? And you got anything else to plug?
Well, like you said, you can find me on Twitter at Herms NFL. You can find the work that I do with The Lateral at The Lateral FF, and also our website, www.thelateralff.com. We mentioned Pat Fitzmaurice earlier. If you want to hear me speak to him about things, you can experience that on Sunday at 3 p.m.
Yes!
It'll be super neat. Oh my gosh, right? Like, yeah, man, it's going to be great. I'm super excited about it. That's going to be cool.
And he's awesome, man. Like he is fantastic. Like he's such a personable dude, and really just fantastic content. Like, I learned so much just from picking his brain and talking to him on the podcast, like, about his ranking process and all that kind of stuff. Like, definitely go check him out on Twitter at Fitz. I think it's Fitz _FF.
_FF. Yeah.
Fitz _FF is his name. Fantastic data.
Fitz on Fantasy, great podcast. It's one of my favorites. When he agreed to come on the show with me, I geeked out and definitely told my dad. But either way, so it's like, I'm really excited about that. That's going to be cool. And then as soon as this is over, if you are demented enough to feel compelled to continue to hear me speak, I will be on Rumboys After Dark with the Rumboys Fantasy Network. If you don't know where to find that, Google it. And then I have a YouTube show in Herms terms. Clever title, right? With 14 personnel. You can find their Twitter page at 14p_pod. I do a lot of different stuff. I mostly talk about football, pizza, and the fact that I get sad a lot. But it's fine because everybody has feelings. Yeah, mental health awareness, type 2 bipolar disorder in the building. What's up? Hey, live your life.
Let's go.
Live your life, man.
Let's
We're all
go.
different. Embrace your differences or whatever, man. Like, don't hide it. Talk about it. People probably feel the same way that you do. So just like say it. It's fine. It's fine. If you need somebody to talk to, hit me up.
I wanted to talk about this more on this podcast, but we are running out of time. But the mental health awareness that you've brought, even just to the Twitter world, has been absolutely fantastic. Before we get out of here, I just want to talk quickly about Brighter Skies, which is the main focus is to stop cyberbullying, but it's also as a resource for mental health. People who are suffering from cyberbullying, who want somebody to talk to, that they just need to vent, or they need to get something off their chest. It is an absolutely fantastic resource. We have an anonymous help page, a Google form you can fill out just to talk to somebody. And if you want, we can reach out to you. If not, if you just want to put it out there just to get it off your chest, that's open as well. So we'll check that out at the Brighter Skies Twitter handle, at Brighter Skies FF. We're doing a big best ball league. I've talked about it a bunch on here, done a few episodes about it, so I'm not going to get in it too much, but absolutely fantastic cause I'm super excited about. We've got a prize for every single person who gets entered into, who gets chosen to be in the league. We're raffling off all of the tickets. It's $10 a ticket. It's going to be an absolute blast. That's in about a month and a half from now. We're going to do the actual raffle, or we're going to do the actual podathon, doing the whole draft and everything. So it's going to be really, really exciting. I am pumped for that coming up, guys. But yeah, Chris, you got anything to add before we get out of here, man? Other than be a good person, because that goes without saying.
Absolutely. Nothing crazy. My IDP ranks are out, top 100, rookies included, can be found on the Undroppable, also on Fantasy Pros. I'm working on my top 200 Superflex rankings. I'm kind of in a ranking mood here. So those will be out soon. And again, if you're looking for me, I'd like to think you don't have to look very far. I'm at Detroit Beastie. Thank you for this tonight.
Yeah, this was honestly an absolutely fantastic episode, guys. I appreciate both of you guys so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Herms, I'd love to have you on again, man. This was an absolute blast. To be completely honest, guys, like, I've been working a lot with my day job. I just started this new job a couple weeks ago, and I felt a little underprepared for this podcast. Like, I built the show doc last night. I sent it off to you guys, and I'm all worried that it's coming in late. And honestly, I think it went really, really well. I had an absolute pleasure.
Those are the best ones.
Talking with you guys. You're right. You're right.
The ratings are in.
Being unprepared
It went well.
Yeah. When you're not prepared, it leads to more off the cuff, like serious stuff. Like, it's not robotic, like reading off of a list. So being unprepared, I personally think that's the way to go. You get more sincere replies, more honest answers.
Definitely. So thank you, guys. I'm gonna click the outro button, and we will be out of here for the night. Go check out Herms on the Rum Boys pod. After Dark pod right after this. He will be right on there. So and I just wanted to say before we get out of here, thanks to Craig, Kyle, Ty, Smokey, we got Ghost Space Force in the chat as well. We got a bunch of people that were tuning in tonight, lighting up the chat room. Like, your guys' support means the world to me. I absolutely love having you guys in there. I love talking football with the people that I bring on. Herms, it's been a pleasure. Chris, it's been awesome. So have a great Friday night, guys, and enjoy your weekend.
You too.
See ya.